Good morning, good morning, good morning, ATL sports fans. Good morning, Falcons fans. Good morning, Braves fans, Dogs, Hawks. Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing? I hope you guys had a great weekend. And yeah, today we're going to talk some Falcons football, specifically an interview with Raheem Morris and Mr. Robert Mays, which I believe Robert works for The Athletic. But I had a chance to catch this interview this weekend. And I got to tell you, I could not be more excited about Raheem Morris after watching this interview. Raheem is the kind of guy, the more you hear him talk, the more you hear him speak, the more excited you get about the Falcons. It's infectious. And I want to do part one of a series. I think I'm going to entitle it Raheem Morris, head coach and collaborator. Because if you really delve into this interview, he gave a lot of just golden nuggets, a lot of meat and potatoes, and a lot of what has culminated in him being successful, and hopefully what's going to continue his success with the Falcons. So, really excited about it. Without much further ado, let's get into it. So, guys, essentially, after watching this interview, and I would invite anyone who is a Falcons fan, please watch the interview. You can catch it on YouTube. It is Raheem Morris with Robert Mays, who I believe, again, works for The Athletic, but just a dynamic interview, 36 to 40 minutes, but a lot of just great information. Not just for running a football team, but running any particular organization. Anyway, I just want to get into kind of my interpretation as to the breakdown of this interview and what makes Raheem a great coach. So I've essentially crafted a list called Pillars of a Winning Team. And I think these are some of the things that make Raheem successful. Um, Collaboration. I think that's a big part of who he is today as a leader, who he is today as a person, who he is today as a coach. I'd have to say collaboration, adaptability, um, being adaptable to situations, scenarios, whatever comes your way, evolution, specifically evolving as a defensive play caller. You can't get stuck in one particular mode, in one particular system. You have to be able to evolve to what works and what wins. Having a growth mindset, right? So coming out, approaching it like every day we're going to get better. Every day we're going to grow. Every day we're going to learn. Every day we are essentially trying to be better than we were before, right? And last but not least, a diversity of approach. And when I say diversity, I'm not talking about race, religion, background. I'm talking about diversity of thought. I'm talking about working with people from different backgrounds. So let's say you're from a 3-4 defense and this person is from a 4-3 defense, and somebody else over here was cover 2 and somebody else over here was cover 3, essentially collaborating with those with that personnel to come up with the best defense for your particular team. All right. One of the things he talks about, and one of the first things they got into, was when Raheem took over the Rams in 2021. And I know this is a Falcons podcast, but just give me a little leeway here. What we're talking about is essentially Raheem's approach to coming to a new team. Now, mind you, he came into the I'm sorry about that, guys. He came into 2021 with the Rams already having a dynamic defense, right? They were already very good. They were already ranked very high. They hired him to take over the Rams. And so the first thing he says is, look it, instead of coming in and changing the terminology, which a lot of defensive coordinators do, right? So if one play is called, I don't know, Falcon T will blitz one, he may come in and change it to, I don't know, it's Atlanta, so hot wings and lemon pepper blitz two, right? It's just a different terminology, same play. He didn't want to do that because essentially what he says is instead of 60 guys having to learn a new terminology and it's already working and everybody on the team already recognizes it, I'm just going to input my core beliefs, my core principles, but we'll keep the terminology the same, which is a big difference, right? A lot of guys that come from college to pro, they know the plays, but what takes a while is essentially learning the terminologies. So Raheem says, you know what? We're not going to do that. I'm just going to come in. We're going to keep the terminology as it is, and we'll change a play here and there. We'll change a principle here and there. We'll move guys around. We'll design the scheme, or essentially enhance the scheme that's already here, right? Essentially, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that was impressive, and to me, that speaks to Raheem's adaptability, right? I'll give you a recent example of that. Well, not necessarily recent, but an example that I can recall. Brian Billick won a Super Bowl with, I believe, the 2001 Ravens. Either 2000 or 2001. May have been 2000. Yeah, I think it was the 2000 Ravens. But either way, Brian had come from the Vikings with Randy Moss, Randall Cunningham, and, in 98, they were the best offense in the league. So they were a highly touted offensive team, scored a lot of points. They were great. He goes to a defensive heavy team, right? So the polar opposite of where he came from. And in mid-season, Ray Lewis, all those guys over there, they're on a record-breaking pace as far as defense is concerned. Their defense is killing them. Their offense isn't great. But you know what? Ryan says, not Ryan, Brian says, you know what? We're just going to run the ball. We're going to run the ball, play keep away, let our defense hold teams to 13 or 14 points, and we'll win that way. And you got to understand, for an offensive coach to do that, that takes a certain amount of trust and humility, but it is also adaptability. And it also takes a certain amount of humility to say, I know I'm an offensive coach, but this is going to be the way that we win. Right. And that's what he did. And he ended up being a Super Bowl winning coach. So, sometimes, most times, it's about adapting a scheme that fits the team that you have. Right. My father used to tell me a long time ago, a good coach can take his team and beat your team, and then turn around and take your team and beat his team. And this is essentially an example of that. But anyway, getting back to what he did when he took over the Rams in 2021, he talked about designing a scheme so that Aaron Donald could get one-on-ones. And for those of you who don't know who Aaron Donald was, he was a defensive tackle. I would say the best defensive tackle in the league for the past 7-8 years, the best. I would say he changed the game. So the first thing he did was he designed a system in which Aaron Donald could get one-on-ones, right? Talked about Jalen Ramsey, who was a great quarterback, but he moved him around in this defense. So he had a cornerback. I'm sorry. So he had him to play a little bit of cornerback, had him to play a little bit of safety, just moved him around so he could get different looks and understand different vantage points and perspectives from a defense. Of course, they had Von Miller. Von Miller speaks for himself, one of the best blitzers and pass rushers in the world. He designed defenses for Robert Flores, and he developed Ernest Jones as a blitzer. And all of these things culminated in the Rams winning a championship in 2021, right? And interestingly enough, even though Sean McVay is a great, outstanding offensive coach, it was the defense that was on the field in the last segment of the game, the last plays of the game, that saved the victory. And it was Aaron Donald who I believe made the sack or either broke up the play. But either way, the defense would ended up making a stand to win the championship for the Rams. And of course, Raheem Morris was the coach at the time. So what I got from this is that he knows how to look at the strengths and weaknesses of his players and to design schemes that fit the players. And this is a very important trait for NFL coaches, because for a long time as well, this guy needs to fit our scheme. He needs to fit what we do. And there's still a point to that, right? When you draft, you're obviously going to draft guys who fit your scheme. If you like to blitz a lot, you're going to draft guys that are really good at, rushing the quarterback. If you are a man-to-man team in coverage, you're going to draft cornerbacks that can cover man-to-man. It just depends on what you want to do. But with that being said, even in the midst of that, when you are designing schemes week to week to go up against teams, you want to put your players in a position to win. You want to put your players in a position to succeed. And that is essentially what Raheem is doing here. That's what he's talking about. He's saying, I'm going to take a look at what we have. I'm going to take a look at the skill set as to what we have. I'm going to take a look at as far as, what our players do well, maybe what they don't do well. And I'm going to design the best scheme for us as a team. I'm going to collaborate, right? He also talked about a question to him during the interview was, well, is this year's Falcons team going to be like, the Rams, or are you going to design a scheme that's like the Rams, which is essentially where you just left? And his answer was no, we're going to be the 2024 Falcons. He says we've got defensive coach or defensive coordinator Gray here, who has a different background. We have other defensive coaches who have a defensive background. So we're going to get together, right? We're going to collaborate. We're going to evaluate our players, and we're going to come up with the things that we do best as a defense. And that is the defense that we will implement. And I was very impressed with this, because a lot of coaches would take the mindset, well, it's going to take us maybe a year or two because I need to implement my system. And what Raheem talks about is, hey, it's not my defense, it's our defense. You got to take your ego out of it, right? So we're going to define it. We're going to design a defense that will allow these players to play fast. So in order to do that, they have to be comfortable with it. They have to know it. It has to fit their skill set. And that's what he's talking about. But a big part of this is the diversity of coaches. And what that says to me really is that Raheem is not intimidated by anybody. There's a saying, and I think Henry Ford said this. He said he didn't have to be the smartest man in the room, right? He would hire people that were smarter than him in certain areas. And he would put together a collective think tank, and together they would design cars, design automobiles, design strategies, design marketing, because he had the best, brightest, smartest people in the room. And I think that Raheem implores this a little bit. You'd have to say Raheem would believe in that, because again, with him, it's all about collaboration, right? So I just think that answer really impressed me, because he could have said, yeah, we'll take some things and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. You very rarely hear Raheem say I or me, right? As a matter of fact, one of the things that he said about the Rams is that they had a we, not me mentality. So it's all about the team. Even the head coach is all about the team, which I think is a great, great mindset. And if you can get 53 grown men to buy into that, you really have something, right? If you can get 53 guys pulling in the same direction, 20 or 30 coaches pulling in the same direction, management pulling in the same direction, staff pulling in the same direction, doctors, medical staff, stadium personnel. If you get everybody pulling in the same direction, you really have something. And I really feel like, guys, we are on the precipice of greatness. Anyway, that being said, the interview also talked about, Raheem's background, right? So he started in Tampa Bay with Monty Kiffin. Those of you who know Tampa Bay, those of you old heads like me who can go back that far, you remember Monty implemented the Tampa 2 cover 2 defense, and it was great. Then he goes from, Tampa to Washington with Jim Haslett, where they're just blitz happy, blitz heavy, blitz all the time. Then he goes from there to Dan Quinn, and Dan loves that cover 3, particularly light defensive linemen, faster defensive linemen who can run and cover. Then you go to Sean McVay and the Rams, and you have a different scheme. So what it says to me is Raheem is adaptable, right? Because he's probably looked at every defense known to man, and essentially what he's arrived at is each team is different. And essentially you have to look at the skill set of your defensive players and design a system that fits them, right? Instead of them kind of, well, you got to do this to play in our system, you design a system that fits their skill set. You design a system that's digestible to them. You get their buy-in. Another thing he talked about was that, the defenses that you design have to be likable. They have to be learnable. They have to be fast, physical, and free. And you have to allow the players to take ownership of the defense and take ownership of the play. Kind of like, and I guess I can speak to this. And, in my professional background, I've been a trainer. I used to own I still own a company, but I was essentially a corporate trainer. And one of the things you realize about being a corporate trainer is if you say it, right? If I'm training you on how to do something, if I say it, then I said it. It may be true. It may not be true. But if you, the audience, right? If you, the learners, if you, the trainees, if you, the students in the class say it, then it must be true because you said it. So a large part of, especially in today's training environment, a large part of training is essentially designing courses that are interactive, right? Where the end user or the learner or the student has to interact and participate, which is why when you go to a corporate training class, you have these games and activities that are designed. These games and activities are designed, number one, so you don't get bored to death by the trainer if they're talking, but it is designed so that you get involved, right? Because the more senses we employ, the easier it is to remember, right? If we go back to a basic tenet, a lot of our early learnings are wrapped around songs. Why? Because when you sing something, it is easier to remember it because you are using more of your tools, right? You're using more of your learning skills and your learning tools, right? And this is essentially the same principle. What he's saying is, look, I'm going to design a defense, right? I'm going to design a scheme, but the players have to like it, right? Because in order for them to like it, that's the only way they're going to learn it. And once they learn it, then they can play fast and physical, right? And once they play fast and physical, after they've liked it and learned it, then they can take ownership of it. Because then they can understand the defense and they can evolve and they can grow. And once they can take ownership of the defense, they can take ownership of the play. And the coach's job becomes easier because the coach and players are in sync. Which, again, I thought was great. I really did. I thought that was great, right? Talked about Raheem's mantras, and one of them was always be evolving, always be growing, always be developing as a coordinator, as a coach, because if you don't, it passes you by. And then you're out of the game. So the reason I'm excited about this is because Raheem is coming into a situation where it's not just a blank canvas. It's not that we are devoid of talent. We have one of the best and brightest interior defensive lines on the planet, right? I'll take Grady, Onyemata, Eddie Goldman, dude from Georgia, Kentavia Street, anybody you want to put at that nose tackle position against anybody. We've drafted some really good guys in Dorless and Trice and Rook. We got Ebikadi, we got Harris. We have some guys that are teetering on the edge of going from decent rookie, pretty good rookie to really good player, right? Transitioning, growing from year 1 to year 2 and year 2 to year 3, right? We have one of the best linebacking cores. You got Troy Anderson, you got Nate Landman, you got Caden Ellis, who's a great blitzer, by the way, right? We got Jesse Bates, we got AJ in the back. We have the tools to craft a very, very good defense. And we have a coach who's done it before. We have a coach who's learned. We have a coach who has a defensive prowess, also learned offensive schemes. So I would say his overall understanding of the game has grown. And you got this guy working with Jerry Gray to design your defense. And I just think the end result is going to be great. Lest we not forget the offense, right? Which we'll get into, maybe Wednesday or Friday of this week. But I say all of that to say I'm really excited about this Falcons team. I'm really excited about it. Do I think we'll go 17-0? No, I don't. We'll probably win 12 to 11 games. Worst case scenario 10. But, I went on record as saying 12. I said what I said. I'm going to double down on that. This team could win 11 games. But what excites me about it is as we grow, as we develop, as we learn going into the playoffs, this Falcons team is going to be very dangerous. They're going to be very dangerous. They're not going to be a team you want to see because they can defend the ball. And that offense, again, I firmly believe they're going to score 28 points a game. So, again, anybody out there, I would encourage you guys to take a listen to the interview. Really take a listen to it because I walked away really impressed. Before, Raheem is a great speaker. He is articulate. He is charismatic. He's an excellent speaker. But in this interview, he really, really, really got into the meat and potatoes. He was very transparent. And not that he's not transparent before, but he really provided a look behind the curtain, so to speak, as to how and why he's gotten to this point and why he's successful. And if you really look at it, if you really examine it, it checks out. So I think this year's Falcons defense is going to be a top 12 defense. No doubt about it. I have no doubt in my mind this year's defense will be a top 12 defense. Our offense could be better. Our offense could be better. Our offense could be top 10. I really believe like the only piece that we were missing last year was quarterback. Quarterback at a certain level, but I think we were missing that last year. I think we have that, and I think we added an assortment of weapons to go along with what we already had, which I believe the end result is going to be this offense is going to score a lot of points. They can beat you running. They can beat you throwing. Our special teams unit, I believe, is going to be a good one. Marquise Williams is a great special teams coach. He's got some weapons this year. There's a certain thing called timing. And I just think everything is falling into place for us. So I'm excited about it. Guys, this is, series 1 of a series of 3. So Wednesday, we'll get into other parts of the interview. And I'm looking forward to spending that time with you guys. So with that being said, I have nothing else for the day. If you watch the video and you like it, please like and subscribe. I can be reached at 4myATLsports1 on YouTube. Again, that is the number 4, my ATL Sports 1, and the ATL in that is capitalized. Please like and subscribe, review content. I'm also a member of the One Time for the Fan podcast team, and we also, podcast weekly. We do it Sunday nights at 8 p.m., Wednesday night at 8 p.m., and Friday morning we have a breakfast show at 9-ish, 9 a.m., and that's One Time for the Fan. So either way, please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys Wednesday. Thank you for giving me your time today. Hey, you guys be great. Again, I just want to thank God for this opportunity. I want to thank God for putting me in front of you guys. You guys have a great day, an awesome week. And hey, take it one day at a time. I will see you guys on Wednesday. Thank you.